A shocking revelation. The millionaire's mistress stuns the congregation on church steps. The air crackled with hushed whispers and stifled gasps as Emily stood on the steps of St. Michael's Church, heart racing. The sun, high and bright, cast a halo on her father's coffin, but the glow felt deceptively ominous today. The villagers who had spent years adoring her father, beloved Reverend Thomas Breck, now shifted nervously, their whispers spiraling with the scent of betrayal. She could see the shock rippling through their faces like a wave, a mix of disbelief and outrage etched into their features. The serene village was rocking on its heels, as if the earth beneath them had begun to quiver with secrets. Then, just as the service began, the heavy oak doors swung open. In strode a woman, striking and bold. Her crimson dress flowed like a flame, and long dark hair tumbled in waves down her shoulders. Emily's stomach tightened. This was no ordinary attendee. The woman's eyes, piercing and defiant, swept across the congregation like a thief in the night. "I am Miranda," she announced, her voice smooth but laced with tension. "I was Thomas's lover." For a moment, time hung suspended in the air. Emily felt the world around her narrow to a pinprick as the townsfolk gasped in unison. Eyes widened, mouths fell agape. She could almost hear hearts skipping beats. "No!" a voice cried out from the back. Old Mrs. Jenkins, clutching her handbag like a life raft, looked ready to faint. The tension swelled, a raw energy that filled the sacred space. Emily's heart pounded as she took a step forward, her voice shaky but resolute. "How dare you come here? You don't belong." But inside, confusion twisted like a knife. Always the dutiful daughter, she had clung to the image of her father as a paragon of virtue. Now, this stranger threatened everything she had known about her father's life. What if there were more hidden stories? Buried truths lurking beneath the polished surface of their small village. Miranda's eyes glittered, defiant as if she reveled in the chaos. "You should know the whole story, Emily. Your father was not who you think he was." The weight of those words crushed down on her. She felt the air escape her lungs, a lump forming in her throat. Around her, gasps of disbelief. What was this woman, this scandalous intruder, trying to say? Emily wanted to scream, to demand that all of this was a lie. But somewhere beneath the rising tide of panic, a flicker of curiosity ignited. Who was this woman really? Could her father have been hiding more than just a secret love? The congregation fidgeted, the tension mounting, and all Emily could think about was the legacy her father had left behind. A beloved vicar, or a false idol? As whispers of old family ties and bitter secrets swirled, confusion morphed into dread. "What is the truth?" she murmured, feeling the weight of her father's memory crashing onto her shoulders. As she stood at the crossroads of love and betrayal, Emily realized she might have to choose between preserving her father's reputation and uncovering the truth. Was her life a facade, crafted by her father's hidden truths? Just then, a distant thunder rumbled, shaking the very earth under their feet. A fitting backdrop for the storm brewing in Emily's heart. Just how deep did these secrets run? Hey, before I continue with this amazing story, I have to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has deleted their subscriptions without warning. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you are still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content. And while you're there, leave that mighty like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Emily felt the storm raging inside her. A tempestade de emoções suílis em que ela estava naquelas pedras. O sangue padoiava na boca, atacando os gasmos ao redor dela. Você está mentindo, ela gritava a Miranda. Mas há dúvidas na ordem cabeça. A moeda de tudo isso era seu pai. Not Hushitochi. But before Miranda could responder, crash ecoou para o ar. Os bordes pesados de São Miguel se abriram à altura uma vez mais. Era David, Emily's paixão, o amigo de infância da Emily, o rosto pálido e olhos vazios. Emily, chamou o apoio. David, o quê? Mas não deixou que ela terminar. Ele trancou um pedaço de papel desabado de toda a sua pele, perigindo a todos os nervos. You need to see this, now! Emily tomou o peido, cabeças tremendo, sentindo a weed esplaçar em suas mãos. Era um envelope seco de papa com friso, de guindado de papel, suas brates. Caught. The message was from her father's lawyer, dated just days before his death. It was a will, a last testament unknown to her. Your father, he was planning something, David breathed heavily. He met with someone important. Look at the last line. Emily's eyes raced down the page, her brow furrowing more with each word. And there it was, buried amid legal jargon. Dot. Reveal the identity of my true heir. True heir? The words pulsed in her mind like an electric shock. Her world flipped. What does that even mean? She muttered. But her heart was already sinking, suspicion growing sharp and painful. Miranda's presence felt oddly heavy, as if a sinister axis was shifting under their feet. I know who that heir is, Miranda spoke, her voice suddenly low and cold, contrasting the earlier defiance. Your father and I, we had plans, Emily. He wanted to build a life together. You were never meant to know. A flicker of understanding, fierce and painful, ignited within Emily. What? You can't be serious. The weight of every accusation she'd just hurled at Miranda fell back on her, the bitter taste of betrayal filling her mouth. But before Miranda could respond, another distinct sound ripped through the air, a shriek full of anguish. The congregation's hushed murmurs transformed into chaos as Mrs. Jenkins collapsed, clutching her chest, her handbag rolling away on the church steps. A gasp echoed, and then another. Emily's heart raced. For help, someone shouted. But Emily's focus was still on the note and Miranda. Was there some connection? Suddenly, Mrs. Jenkins was sprawled on the ground, gasping for breath like a fish out of water. Everything spiraled, the vivid colors of reality blending into shades of panic. Get back, a moment later, David shouted, his arms reaching toward Emily, who felt heavy with confusion and dread. As if the world had gone silent, she turned her attention back to the woman in red, wondering if all this chaos had been orchestrated. What was hidden beneath the surface? Just then, a low rumble rolled across the sky, merging with a crack of lightning. The storm finally unleashed above the sacred ground. A fitting backdrop for the turmoil. Do you really want to know who your father was? Miranda leaned in closer, words hot with intention. Because the truth, it's darker than you can imagine. Emily's heart raced, dread gripping her. What more awaited her in the shadows of her father's life? An heir, a hidden truth, and now, a woman fighting to claim it. The weight of secrets pressed down on her, the culmination of all she had held dear, unraveling like a fraying tapestry. And as the rain began to pour, washing away the divine calm of St. Michael's Church, Emily realized this was only the beginning. A storm brewing within her, intertwining with life-altering secrets that could forever change her destiny. What was true and what was pure deceit? In that moment, as the sky wept with relentless fury, her fight for clarity had only just begun. The rain fell in sheets, drowning out the chaos around them as Emily stood frozen, the note clutched tightly in her hands. Miranda's eyes bore into her, a mix of challenge and expectation that made Emily's stomach churn. What do you mean? Darker than I can imagine, she demanded, heart pounding. Suddenly, someone shouted from the back, "Get away from her!" It was David, pushing through the congregation, urgency etched into every line of his face. But he hesitated, glancing at the fallen Mrs. Jenkins. The tension in the air felt electric, alive with secrets. "Emily, this isn't safe," David urged, grabbing her arm. "We need to leave, now." But before she could respond, Miranda laughed, a cruel, mocking sound that seemed to echo off the centuries-old church walls. "Running away won't solve anything. This is just the beginning." "Enough," Emily shouted, the weight of her words drawing the attention of those near. The crowd was a sea of confused faces, torn between shock and concern. Her pulse raced as she fought to gather her thoughts. What game was Miranda playing? Then, without warning, the ground shook, as if the earth itself was protesting against the gathered souls. The windows rattled violently, and a crack of thunder roared through the sky. The congregation screamed, scattering like leaves in a storm. Emily's heart raced, panic surging as she stumbled backward. In that moment of chaos, the unthinkable happened. The church's steeple, a proud symbol of their village, began to crumble, stone and wood splintering apart like fragile toys. "Run!" someone screamed, and the crowd erupted in chaos, pushing past one another in desperation. Emily barely had time to register this horror before she saw it. A figure, emerging from the back of the church, shadowed and ominous. "Stop!" he shouted, voice booming over the cacophony. It was her father's voice. No, that wasn't possible. He was gone. But as the figure stepped into the dim light filtered by rain-soaked windows, her breath caught. "You don't understand," the man said, stopping just before the altar. Drente ba alase. Lhe estava Thomas Breck. Não era como ela lembrava, mas viva e cheia de energia. "Eu posso explicar tudo. Temo o caos." Incredulidade se transformando em medo. O coração de Emília respirava, o mundo se contraindo aos poucos. "Pai, eu sou voz, mas como?" "Emily, venha comigo." Ele tinha o olhar ainda mais forte. Os olhos, fera. "Tenho coisas para te revelar. Há segredos que você tem querido guardar." Miranda, ainda olhando, guardando, emocionada por derrota. E lágrima, assumindo da diversidade de vitória, assim certeza. Comandou. "Você estava suposto a ficar escondido, que você deve ter tudo na minha cara. Todas as mentiras. Acaba hoje." Emily poderia encontrar a sua verdade de derrota. Thomas, olhando para Miranda, atento olhe parado. "Eu posso lhe mostrar." Como vê o Toma. Ele mesmo. Não queria discutir. Only watch, heart pounding, as this revelation turned her world upside down. The man she thought was dead was suddenly here, and the implications whirled around her like autumn leaves caught in the wind. What was the truth of her father's life? Who was this woman who claimed to know him so intimately, and why had he risked everything to return now? Thunder rumbled above, echoing the turmoil inside her. The storm outside mirrored the tempest brewing in her heart. A whirlwind of confusion, fear, and an aching need for answers. "What do you mean?" she demanded, stepping closer as the crowd stood like statues around them, all eyes glued to this impossible reunion. But as she reached for him, the lights flickered. Dendimo. O pai dela subitamente obscureceu, e justo assim, flash de luz estourou, iluminando a verdade por uma cadência. Naquele momento breve, ela sabe bem o que era ele, mas homem transido em segredos escuros, encarando perto da vida. Ele enxergou que tudo estava em dúvida. Onde a traição começara, e o amor começava, a de treva se libeja como uma tempestade. O coração arrodecendo, Emily glance para cima, e os céus dançavam com meu pai enquanto a cena de boca. Até o sinistro de lighting dele
iluminou a figura.
It's not safe here, David shouted, pulling her arm. The church felt as if it were closing in, its very structure shaking under the weight of truth long buried. Emily, listen, Thomas urged, his voice trembling with urgency. I'm here to protect you. There are things you don't know. But his words hung like a storm cloud, heavy and dense, drowning her in confusion. She wanted to believe him, to rush into his arms and wrap herself in the comfort of his embrace. But doubt gnawed at her insides. Then a wail pierced the rumbling thunder outside, a chilling cry that seemed to resonate from the depths of her own soul. She turned sharply to see Mrs. Jenkins, still sprawled on the ground, but now trembling violently as if something within her was breaking apart. "Someone help her," Emily screamed. But just as two men stepped forward, something strange occurred. Mrs. Jenkins' hand shot out, clutching the air. Then she sat up with startling speed. Her eyes were wide but unseeing. She was almost possessed. "They are coming for him," she shrieked, her voice raw and unnatural. The crowd gasped collectively, each face a mask of shock. "What do you mean?" Emily stepped back, forcing her heart para pegar peça. Mas em vez de respostas, o corpo de Mrs. Jenkins se contorceu, veias pulsando sob sua pele como cobras agitadas prestes a atacar. De repente, sua voz se aprofundou, profunda e ressonante, enviando calafrio pela espinha de Emily. "A criança holds the key. The truth shall be revealed." There was an otherworldly power in her tone, and for a brief moment, an electric silence occupied the space where panic had just reigned. David staggered back. "What's happening?" He looked at Emily, eyes wild with desperation. Then, without warning, the lights flickered again. Emily's pulse quickened as the room was plunged into darkness. In that chilling void, she could hear the frightened whispers of the congregation, the crackling of tension thick in the air. But at the center, amidst the whispers, another voice joined, a soft, sinister chuckle. It was Miranda, and now she stepped forward, her silhouette cutting through the darkness. "You think you know who your father was. He loved you." True, but it was never that simple. Her voice was smooth, dripping with malice. "Why are you doing this?" Emily shouted, the words clawing their way out amidst her fraught emotions. And then, as if the world responded to her cry, the windows shattered, the sound like shattering glass raining down, an orchestra of chaos echoing through the church. The cold wind swept through, swirling papers and debris in a dance of destruction. In the moment of disarray, Thomas took a step back, his face pale. "Emily, please, But his words were lost beneath the clamor. Suddenly, from behind Miranda, another figure emerged, pale and ghostly, an eerie familiarity causing chills to race along Emily's spine. It couldn't be my brother. Miranda Bridge. Seu olhar foi de confiança a horror. A figura saiu mais perto com um gosto venhado absurdo. Uma face turida e familiar. Confronto que não tinha visto em anos. "Ele tá morto mesmo", voz bem áudia acima do ruído. Todo mundo se olhou para bate forte. Emily sentia o espero pesado na garganta. Com desconfiança, Emily foi o seu irmão ou aquela paixão impossível para sempre. Estou de volta dela, vivo e fazendo exatamente como seu pai. E neste momento, a tempestade fora foi fogo sentido, como se os deuses tivessem sim presos para protegê-los. Ele fez para protegê-los. A blade, giving weight to a truth so massive it sent tremors through her entire being. The congregation stood awash in the tumult of the crumbling church, grappling with the revelation that threatened to unravel everything they ever believed. Emily's mind raced. Was this the key to their past? How deep did this secret run? The silence that followed was suffocating, as Emily stared wide-eyed at the brother she thought she lost forever. And in that moment, it sank in like a heavy stone. The storm wouldn't just wash away the truth. It would reveal a darkness that had long lingered, one that now threatened to rip them all apart. The silence that followed felt heavier than the rain-soaked air. Emily's heart was pounding in her chest as she stared at her brother, the brother she thought died long ago. Confusion twisted her stomach. She wanted to scream, to embrace him, but something deeper held her back. Trust was a fragile thing, and with it shattered, she hesitated. "What did you say?" She finally managed to whisper, her voice trembling. He looked at her, so much like their father, yet there was something unsettling in his eyes, something just beyond her grasp. "I'm here to protect you," he said again, but this time his voice was softer, desperate. Then Miranda laughed, the sound sharp and taunting. "Protect her? Look at you, Kyle. You're the one who needed protection," she snapped, her defiance crackling through the air like an electric charge. "Enough," Thomas yelled, stepping forward, his face tight with urgency. "This isn't the time or place." But before he could continue, another deafening crack of thunder echoed through the church. It felt like nature itself was protesting against this chaotic revelation. The lights fluttered again, barely holding on, and then darkness. In that pitch black, a scream ripped through the air. It was Mrs. Jenkins. The sound sliced past the confusion in Emily's mind. She's, but before she could even think it, a blinding flash lit the church once more. And there, at that very moment, as the bolts illuminated the figures around her, Emily noticed something shocking. Kyle's eyes weren't just like Thomas's. They were the exact same shade, but they were colder, more calculating. "Emily, listen to me," he pleaded, panic creeping into his voice. He stepped closer, but the distrust built a wall between them. With a rush of adrenaline, she shouted, "What are you really after?" The tension wrapped tighter around them, making it hard to breathe. Then a strange laughter broke out, a sound not from Miranda, but from Mrs. Jenkins. She was standing, but not quite right. Her movements were jerky, her smile wide, but her eyes were clouded. "You think you're safe? You think any of you matter?" she croaked, voice echoing unnaturally. "What do you mean?" David shouted, his face pale, eyes darting between the figures. But before Mrs. Jenkins could respond, her body curled unnaturally, and she began to convulse, arms twitching. The crowd gasped, recoiling as if the very air had turned foul. Emily felt a cold chill race down her spine. "Something's wrong," David shouted, stepping back instinctively as the old woman's face twisted grotesquely, the laugh morphing into a scream that echoed against the walls. And then she spoke, but her voice wasn't her own. It was deeper, darker. "The heir is not who you think. The bloodline runs thicker than water." Emily's breath hitched. The implications thundered in her mind. What did this mean? Then suddenly, as if the storm outside wanted in, the ceiling overhead cracked, and a massive stone fell, crushing a pew to splinters. Chaos eruptou. Pessoas choraram, morreram por vir. Tempo inteiro desencadeia. O relógio, o coração se despedaça por eternidade. Fechado uma ponta do Kyle. Ele não era de medo. Foi uma vida super despertada. Nada disso. Ele sabia. Ele tinha tudo perfeito. Só se enterou e se pudera zida. O herdeiro. But something darker. Something that sent chills down her spine. You don't know what's coming, Emily. You've only scratched the surface. As the crowd fell into chaos around her, she felt her world fracturing again, torn between fear and desperate need for truth. Emily's heart raced. What lay beneath the layers of deception? Just how deep did these secrets go? And just as she took a step towards her brother, the ground trembled again. A jagged crack snaked through the floor, and she hesitated, heart hammering, This wasn't just about her father anymore. This was bigger than all of them, and the storm within wasn't just about nature. It was a tempest of family betrayal, blood that threatened to drown them all. What had they unleashed? Emily blinked against the dark, her heart pounding harder than the storm outside. Chaos surrounded her, yet time felt strangely suspended. The electric tension thrummed in the air, the shadows warping everything familiar. Emily, you need to trust. Me. Kyle's voice was urgent, but disbelief clutched at her thoughts like a vice. Trust you? She spat, incredulous. After everything? After the storm you just brought on? Miranda stepped in, her expression shifting from amusement to irritation. You think this is a game? You've only just begun to grasp how deep this runs. Then it happened. The ground trembled violently. A crack shot through the floorboards, splitting the church wide open like an old wound reopening. Emily stumbled, catching-se pá no seu lado como o pânico chegou. Watch out, Davi falou com voz escaqueada, dirigindo-la para trás, como peso de pedra tambulando de modo quase inesperado. But, amidst the chaos, a thick fog began to purir, surlando o tempo limpo córita. Ela investiu as figuras ao redor, distorcendo suas faces em caracteres grotescos. Pânico entre a falta e emos. Só demos. A fog se levanta preocupando para Emily, para ver a senhora Jenkins ainda convulsando, e os olhos agora gloindo verde, como se alguma força tenha tomado conta dela. Emily podia sentir os flores colapsando ao redor, os pungos travados entre a esteréria etéreal. Heart racing. Emily. Her brother's voice flickered like wavering light. You need to run. But her feet felt glued to the ground. Everything around her was spiraling out of control. Then, with a booming voice that filled the church, Mrs. Jenkins spoke. Again. The bloodline is cursed. The true heir is not what you think. The weight of those words crashed over her like a tidal wave. Familial ties felt suddenly tenuous, fraying at the edges. The murmur spread among the crowd like wildfire, fear weaving through them, eyes darting wildly between her brother and the older woman. Before Emily could register what was happening, a flash of light enveloped Mrs. Jenkins, consuming her in a storm of shadows and screams. Then, just like that, she was gone, leaving only the echo of her chilling words hanging in the air. "Mom," Kyle shouted suddenly, his voice cracking, his face twisting into horror. "What have you done?" Emily's head spun at the mention of their mother. "What are you talking about? What does she have to do with this?" But instead of answering, Kyle turned away, his breath quickening. "You need to understand. It was all to protect you from the truth." And then it hit her, a revelation like a lightning bolt. Their mother was alive. She wasn't dead, as she had always been told. It sent another jolt through Emily's core, ripping through her. "Stop playing," she screamed, pulse racing. "You can't just drop bombshells like that." But Kyle was already taking steps back, eyes wild. "They're coming, Emily. My mother's enemies. Your mother, she." The air crackled with tension. "You do you mean?" But before she could process it, the church doors swung open with a explosão forte, revelando dois personagens de branco. Eles entraram com o causão. Eles tinham um olho mais humano. Emily olhou para os olhos deles. Bright com uma percepção de dócil. Eles estavam aqui para algo ruim. Eles tinham um olho mais humano. Eles entraram com a percepção de claridade, olhando para ela, realizando a profundidade do desespero refletida dentro dele. Com as figuras avançaram, o medo passou a ser outra coisa no coração, uma sparca de fúria ignitando dentro dela. "O que você acha que vai ter que passar por mim?" she shouted, her voice steady and strong. And then, the reality of it all hit her like the pounding rain outside. The truth ran deeper than she ever thought. The threads connecting them were woven tighter than fear or love. The moment hung there, the air heavy as an intense connection sparked. Secrets pulsed in the air like a heartbeat. The truth remained just out of reach, lurking behind shadows that had yet to be uncovered. The fight for clarity was unfolding in front of her, and she could feel it in her bones. Just how far would she have to go to uncover the hidden truths of her family? The tension hung thick in the air, every eye focused on the cloaked figures as they stepped into the chaos. Emily dared to hold her ground. "You'll have to go through me." The storm thundered, the lightning illuminating their eerie faces, a haunting reminder of what lay ahead. "Who do you think you are?" David shouted, fear etched across his brow, his grip tightening on Emily's arm. But instead of answering, the taller figure simply stepped forward, a shadow barely illuminated by the feeble church lights. "Step aside, child," he said, voice low, commanding. "We are not here to harm." But Emily could feel the crowd's fear. Whispers rippled like fire, panic rising like the tide. "Trust them?" Kyle scoffed, his eyes darting. "They're not what they seem." Then, in a sudden flash of movimento, o outro figurado pulou a sua capa. A congregação se guaspou de passagem, com medo e mentira. Era algo confundido. Mas, em demais, ele estava retornando para satisfazê-la. O conflito saía agudo por inteiro, e a paz. Emily's voz bem editada, tremendo num gargado de choque, ouvindo aos cintos dele. Protegemos ele, protegemos nós, inimigo que nos atreta a todos. "Noel. But who?" she pressed. The world seemed to hold its breath as every face waited for answers. "Here." He gestured toward Miranda. "She is part of that enemy, but not in ways you think." The audience stirred, panic starting to settle like an unwelcome guest. "The bloodline. It's tangled in something ancient, something dark. You belong to it, Emily." His words crashed over her, heavy with meaning. "The bloodline?" she echoed, feeling the ground shift under her feet. "What do you mean?" "Enough!" Miranda howled, now stepping forward, defiance radiating. "You have no idea what you're playing with." Just then, it happened. The earth trembled violently, the church groaning as if alive. And then, suddenly, everything went dark, not just dimming lights, but the midnight impenetrable kind. And in the darkness, Emily felt something cold and wet enveloping her. Not rain. No, it felt wrong. She gasped, reaching out instinctively, but hands clawed at her from the shadows, pulling, dragging. "No." Her heart raced as chaos erupted anew. "Let go of me." Then, just as suddenly, piercing light flooded back in. To her horror, she saw it. Miranda's hand gripped her wrist, but her eyes were wild, reflecting something sinister. "You see," she hissed, lips curling into a chilling smile. "You belong to none. You are the vessel, Emily. You were born for this." With a wrenching jolt, gravity shifted, dragging Emily further down into the chaos. A scream escaped her lips, torn between disbelief in darkness. What vessel? What did she mean? As she flailed, the light flickered again, and suddenly, it was there. A vision, a rush. Her mother. "Emily," the vision cried, luminous as the truth. "It's all a lie." The room stilled, but not before Emily caught a glimpse of Kyle's face. Something flickered. His eyes widened in fear and recognition. "You were never supposed to find this out," he gasped. "You were never meant to know," before she could respond. An unseen force surged through the air, pushing everyone back. The cloaked figures morphed into shadows, their forms indistinguishable, whispers swirling around with the chaos. Then, in a voice that boomed like thunder, Thomas spoke again. but this time with a strange finality. The truth will set you free, but only if you survive this. And just like that, the ground trembled once more, the church shuddering with ancestral rage. The walls quaked, and as the family drew closer, she felt all her past entwined, threatening to consume her whole. Emily clenched her fists, fighting against the tide of confusion closing in. How could everything have changed in a heartbeat? Was she the vessel, or was this all a huge trick? And then darkness surged again, pulling, Betrayal, everything tipping toward annihilation. The truth had come at a terrible cost, and now as shadows danced around her, it revealed one last, gut-wrenching twist. Shadows of the fallen, descendants of the damned, will you stand or will you break? The ground rumbled as she clutched her head, battling against revelations that shattered everything she thought she knew. Where did her allegiance lie? Even through the chaos, one thought blazed clearer than the rest. The fight was about to begin, and the truth would either make or break them all. The ground trembled beneath them, echoing the storm building within. Emily's pulse raced as her father's voice thundered, the weight of every word, crashing down like waves against a crumbling shore. The truth will set you free, but only if you survive this. Those words hung in the charged air, thick with tension. Lightning sliced through the darkness again, illuminating the chaos. David yanked on her arm, his. Gripe, ferme. Nós precisamos sair aqui. Mas Emily estava parada no chão, olhos incógnigos com as figuras à gueira. Miranda riu. Seus olhos se entrelavam como flagos. Você quer protegê-la, mas não sabe nada deste lugar, desta herança. O coração de Emily subestimou. Raiva, bulindou, sob errado perto da superfície. Sudamente, a charpa craque pesou. Flash brilhante do corpo de Stonewall, a estátua do antigo que dominava o altar. Ela quebrou, emergiu de perto da queimada, e Emily viu Rhea. Era sua mãe, observando. Ela era completamente. Ela tem aebrijos, mas ela é o corcelã. Seuinha, voz gritadosíssima. Sua mãe, respondeu Emily Speorro. Viu chegada de seu rir. Ela era ele. Agora, pai meu. Como o que isso me trouxesse? Mas eu confio, case, se rai, o case. Ela teve posse. Ouve ela, case. O case 8, case meu. Agora, ela teve posse. Vai perguntar, case o case. O que se passou? Desse perguntar, até que ele disse, ela teve posse. Vai perguntar, Emily, lisse-me, escute. Sem despejamento, absurdamente, e ele tenta impedir a probabilidade. O que se passou era quem era. O que se passou? Ela teve posse. Vai perguntar. Emily, lisse-me, escuta-me. A sua mãe bebeu, pânico, raivando na voz. Atrás dela, shadows rialha. A escuridão corroe em torno daquelas. O que tivemos falado? Antes de Kyle chocar, você não teria voltado. Medo, pergunta. Edo, pergunta. O passa, passo. Laced his voice, and panic flickered in Emily's chest. Everyone has a role in this, her mother pressed, defiance creeping in. And sometimes that role requires great sacrifice. Emily felt a jolt of recognition. Sacrifice. It echoed through her, reverberating against long-buried memories. The sacrifices they made. You were alive all along? She whispered, her heart racing. Yes, her mother replied fiercely. I faked my death to protect you both. But just then, Miranda lunged forward, eyes wild. You fool! Do you even understand how this works? The crowd moved like a wave, pushing forward, people stumbling over each other in desperate attempts to escape, only to halt as another bright flash filled the room. But this time, the light wasn't. Fronda storme, it originava depois da estátua, fluindo e pulsando como coração. Uma mescla brilhando, removendo alcançar Emily. Ela podia ouvir sussurros, segredos enterrados dentro. Emily, é hora de ser revelada. E num momento quebrado, o mundo dela e Kyle morfavam, suas formas torcendo e estremecendo, revelando a verdade que ela temia. Não eram o que pareciam. O rosto de Kyle, revelando uma grife sinistra. You were always meant to be part of this, sister. What? She stumbled back in shock. Kyle, no. He's not your brother. Her mother cried, her eyes wide with horror. The world fell silent, a breathless pause hanging over the congregation. What do you mean? Emily's voice trembled, thick with betrayal. Miranda laughed, the sound hollow and mocking. The truth is a bitter coat, filled with family ties bound in blood and betrayal. You've always belonged to me. Emily felt the ground shift, reality fracturing beneath her. Is this who they were? What had her life been built on? Her world spiraled, the images of love rising like smoke, twisting and dissipating. And then the dark mist surged, engulfing everything, wrapping around Emily's throat, stifling her cries. No, she gasped, desperate for air. Was it too late to uncover the truth? With resolve burning in her heart, she lunged forward, facing the shadows. I'll find the truth. I won't be a puppet. Então, não serei poupa esse próximo. Mas as chamas cada vez mais fundas. Tamanha dificuldade era próxima do nível. E os fundo profundamente entorompido. As terras abrilharam e tremeram ela. Desesperação ignitando cada nervo no seu corpo. Mas então, na hora que as vozes sussurravam, chegaram um crescendo. Um vento forte ecoou da trás da igreja. Empurrou vidada para todos. Forward. In an instant, a blinding flash cut through the darkness. Time seemed to freeze as a shimmering light exploded, illuminating everything in its wake. Emily squinted against the brightness, tears pricking her eyes, and then, there it was, a familiar silhouette emerging from the light, regal and ethereal. Emily gasped. Is that, Mom? Her mother stepped forward, no longer the hollow figure from before. She was alive, vibrant, as if she had returned from the depths of a nightmare. But there was something unsettling in her demeanor, a power radiating from her that both drew Emily in and made her heart race with fear. Emily, I've come to show you the truth, her mother declared, voice steady yet laced with urgência. Que tempo atai? Como quer? Choque. Regou-trou a parede. Confusão morfando em desconfiança. O irmão não é o que você pensa, Emily. O quê? Emily sentiu o grão cheirou. Desorientação inspirá-la por dentro. Kyle é meu irmão. Miranda gritou. Assim, ele nunca foi o seu irmão. Em aquela mesma. E significou admiração. A pulse de energia dentro da árvore. Um flash maravilhoso alcançou. Uma visão de um pai Emily foi viu. Uma memória que ela nunca teve. Uma figura escura se empurrou sobre um berço. Uma voz, gárfica, como opis, embora, vivendo em ele. Unfazed by the chaos surrounding them, the true heir is not Kyle, it's you. Emily's heart plummeted. Questions and horror surged, crashing over her like a tidal wave. Me? Why, what does that even mean? Suddenly, a low rumble filled the air, shaking the foundations of the church. A near-silent gasp swept through the crowd as the very ground began to crack, fissures snaking their way toward Emily. "No, you can't, not her," Kyle shouted, his face twisted. "Urgência é te depilar-nos entre os braços." "Stay back." Emily instinctivamente reguentou as mãos em fiatar Temelab. "Que você faz agora, mãe?" Sentia torrento de emoções e circulando entre eles, e estavam todos presos ali. This moment, caught between past and present, victim and villain. "Embrace it!" Her mother's voice rose above the chaos, filled with an unwavering conviction. "You were destined for greatness, forged from the very essence of our family." But behind her, Emily caught a glimpse of Kyle clenched fist at his side, fury boiling beneath the surface. "You're my mother," he yelled, anguish spilling from his lips. "You can't do this." The ground shook again, and as a deafening crack split the air, the walls of the church began to splinter. Emily felt fear grip her heart, a visceral clenching hold. In an explosive moment, the cloaked figure revealed itself, ripping off the hood to unveil a face that took her breath. "Away. I am your true father," he bellowed, eyes blazing with an intensity that was both familiar and alien. Emily felt the world drop away beneath her, shock stealing her breath. Truth twisted like a knife in her heart, carving away everything she had known. "No, it can't be," she gasped. But as the storm outside grew fiercer and echoed within the church, uncertainty gripped her mind. The threads of her story, the relationships she thought she understood, were unraveling before her eyes. "Run!" someone screamed, a voice filled with panic. And just like that, the ground shifted one last time, bringing Emily to her knees, as the full weight of her family's secrets threatened to bury her alive. Was the past a nightmare or a prophecy of doom? The question throbbed in her mind, keeping her anchored to the chaos that swirled around her. What would she have to confront to reclaim her destiny? As darkness pressed in, she felt an unmistakable urge to fight. The church trembled, the air thick with chaos and confusion. Emily's heart raced. "I won't let this darkness consume me," she shouted, her voice straining against the weight of her fate. This overwhelming fear curled tightly around her chest, but she took a step forward, drawing strength from the turbulence. Her mother's eyes flashed like lightning, filled with a fierce urgency. "Emily," she cried, reaching out, "you're the only one who can stop this. The bloodline, it belongs to you. Embrace it." "Embrace what?" Emily's voice rose, echoing against the stone walls. "A legacy built on lies? On darkness?" The energy around her pulsed, radiating through the ground beneath her feet. Panic shot through the crowd as the church creaked and groaned like a living beast in pain. Kyle gritted his teeth, desperation leaking from his every movement. "You don't understand, Emily. They will come for you. They want the power you carry." A flash of doubt crossed his face. "But I can help you." "No more lies," she shot back, tears stinging her eyes. "You're part of this, Kyle. You've been lying to me this whole time." Miranda stepped closer, a twisted smile. "Stretchem across a voz. A triste é abterrada, não é? Gingas que afogam, sufocam, mas podem empoderar." Soube quem a lava, Emily deu sorriso no ouvido. E também de uma forma rápida. Tomei indo de espaço, com a cabeça, fui indo para baixo. Gaspos sentiam na aração. Dessa, sentiam adesão. Daquele, a de Emily. Ao ficar impressionada quando ouviu isso. De novo, gaspos sentiam na aração, daqueles mesmos. Deem silêncio. Onde o olham estava sufocando a entender. Vote, Emily. A mãe ordena, voz extremamente determinada. Você é forte do que essa escura. Você carrega a chave. Decidiu se levantar, de pé, daquele brincar de si. She shouted, defiance igniting like a spark within her. The past may have shaped me, but it does not define me. The storm rumbled outside, mirroring the tempest in her heart. She could feel the shadows swirling, hungry for power. But beneath it all, she sensed an undercurrent of light, the bond of family, woven through chaos and strife. I embrace my truth, Emily declared, each word crashing over the murky shadows around her. In that moment, a blinding light enveloped her, rising from deep within her soul, filling the church with a warmth that chased away the cold. Emily, her mother gasped, eyes wide with awe. As the light grew stronger, the shadows shrank back, howling in protest. Miranda faltered. Anga shift de feira. While Kyle's expressão transformou-se em frustração para maravilha. Com cada pulso da luz, vinha a verdade à frente. Memórias que lentamente estavam enterradas, conexões agniciando. Emily pôde sentir o poder da sua ancestralidade, desenvolvendo-se como uma flor enflorescida. Depois, uma porra de madeira. Seu coração moqueceu com sua hora. Juntamente lançaremos esse ciclo. Emily rompeu o cierre templo e com uma brilhantante bomba, ele chatou pedaços escamocos, infantismo, embrulhos arrancados de medo. Emily, panteando e vivendo com sua voz, reached out, connecting with Kyle, and in that moment, they were bound by a shared understanding. I'm sorry, he breathed, sincerity painting his words. I was wrong. I'll protect you now. As the echoes of chaos faded, her mother stepped forward, wrapping them both in a warm embrace. We will rebuild, Emily, together. A new dawn was rising, and with it came the promise of a future defined by choice and strength, not shackled by past betrayals. But as they stood united, a memory flickered to the surface, reminding her of the lurking shadows. Would they ever truly be safe? And somewhere beyond the church, unseen forces continued their watch. The battle might have been won, but the war was far from over. Before the curtain finally fell on this chapter, let me urge you to do something essential. Hit that subscribe button right now so you won't miss the next exclusive stories coming your way. This is the time to show your support. Smash that like button to fuel the algorithm and help us reach more friends in our community. Flood the comments section with your reactions and wild theories about this finale. I want to hear all of your thoughts. And please share this video with at least 5 friends who need in on the thrilling resolution. Don't wait 1 second longer to spread the word. True fans know it's vital to stand behind our channel. Your support means everything.